This brings me to the final question on which we'd like a reaction. You have already touched upon the fact that EU is somehow lagging behind in the tech race. That, for example, you saw and said that there are several economies in the European Union, and so again we add the GDP, but this doesn't lead to a global GDP. So my last question for each of you, in order to allow each of you to have a reaction. What is your estimate? Has the EU the chance to become a global technological power? EU as a whole, not its individual countries. And again, I will start with Zoltan, and I will borrow you the mic.
Thank you very much. So both of them, the drivers are in that case wages and also scarcity or availability of labor. And I do think that is the point that in Central and Eastern Europe, despite of the lower wages, the scarcity of labor available could force globalization. That is in the coming year, and I think it will be a reality from many point of view. So what I wanted to say is certainly we are always discussing that the US and the China, how they are reviving, and what we see as a particular with the trade and so on. This partly is about who will manage or who will master the future or running technological revolution, more or less, is about it. And the question is where Europe is. I think Europe has many advantages, many good points, and should strengthen this point. You mentioned Industry 4.0. I think the basic problem is with Industry 4.0 that people think, or sometimes the entrepreneur think, oh, I go to the shop and I would like to buy 2 kilo, 2 kilo 4.0. No. Industry 4.0 is the application of these technologies, many 3D printing and so on, in a particular production process. And it should be designed to every company. So what you need for that? You need a cooperation of universities, research institute, advisors, and so on. And we are not so bad in that case in the ecosystem. I really do believe that this kind of there are some advantages where we can move forward. We can't win, for example, in the race for the platform economy, what we have already lost. That means where the Facebook and the other are. And but these companies are based on the private data, where we would have chances using platform economy, which are based on industry or public data. The public data, anyway, in Europe is well regulated and so on. And it is also a field when we make more efficient health system. It could be also part of the global race. So I think that certainly we could design a huge strategy between Europe and China and US and how to strengthen. I would rather say strengthen our capacities where we are good, and those where we have to make more efforts, let's say, to turning business, turning scientific and research results into business, where we need more efforts. That are the point where what we should strengthen.
Thank you. Malgorzata, what is your estimate? It will be on record.
Yeah, okay. As Bart said, we need to be optimistic in Europe, and that's why, yes, I believe we can win. So basically, that's the answer to the question. But I think the more difficult question is how to do. Yes, and as you said, of course, we don't have Facebook already, so we would not have one.
Which is not such a bad thing, if I want to be very ironical. I mean, sorry. It was an irony, of course.
However, you know, all our traditional businesses, they need to digitalize, basically, and that's a great opportunity here in Europe to work on. In my view, Europe should work more on the common on digital market, because that's really also a hot topic within the European Union. And as I said earlier, in my view, well, not sufficient money is put into this, basically, yes? But this is something on which definitely we should work on. And one more important thing is that we should not over-regulate. Because those new business models to thrive, they need a good environment, a good ecosystem, as you said. And basically in Europe we really love regulations, yes, various regulations. And you know, in many aspects it's good because, for example, those new businesses, they really would need, require protection as regards to the IP, yes, because there will be like, you know, in those business models it would work totally differently than today. Basically, they would need to put in place the totally new legal framework in respect of taxes, but also cyber security would be, you know, really, really extremely important in those kind of businesses.
Property rights.
Yes, yes, of course. So basically, there are many areas in which the support of governments and EU at the EU level is required. However, really, let's not over-regulate this.
Oh. Soren, what is your estimate about EU as a global tech power? Are you optimistic as the two previous speakers? Mic is down.
First of all, my mic is off. Oh, thank you very much.
Sharing is caring. First of all, you said so many clever things that I don't know where to begin. I don't know. Are we lacking behind? To start out with, I just think that we are too good at selling our companies to the Americans or the Chinese. So they eventually. I mean, we have so much technology and invention in Europe that I think if you again go back to Denmark and you ask the local entrepreneur what his biggest wish is, it is that an American cash mogul is going to land with his private jet and buy his company. So is that European invention and research technology, or is that suddenly American? So I mean, in my sense, I think we are really not lacking that much behind. And I just think that we need, because we are so many nations, as I said, maybe structurization. Bart said it as well. I mean, it's no fun being number two. So we have why copy Silicon Valley? I mean, it would be my worry if I were a country that needed a boost in my industry, for example. Then there's two ways to do it. I guess there's probably many, but just two for the fun of it. One is to take all the good things that are already invented, pick out the best and implement them. I would do that. But I'm a money guy as well, so. Or I can start and build a research center. And then I can use 25 years on developing technology, and then I could implement it. Then I think that would give you a lot of national pride, but it probably wouldn't help your industry. So I don't think we're lacking behind, but I think we need to find a way to cross the borders, to do technology transfer, as it's called, and somehow stand on each other's shoulders, being European countries for what we are, and use that instead. Just don't sell your company to the Americans. That will solve the problem.
Thank you very much. And Bart, you are the strategy guy, so my question is, do you agree with what Zoltan just said, that the European Union should not look for a grand strategy, but instead to strengthen its capabilities?
Right.
If a high official from the European Union asks you about this, what would be your answer?
That's a super question. So, but boosting your capabilities is actually part of strategy, right? So, so it's not only what you're good at, but talking about capabilities implies what capabilities do you really need to build, right, for you know, your playing field, like where you want to play and how you want to win. So it's part of the strategy, really. And yes, so for the EU So it's not to be a global, let's say, I don't know, global curiosity shop with great museums and nice beaches. You need to strategize to win. And number two, it's talent. I would say focus on talent. Here we've been talking about like China, the US, and the EU. You know, there's another case that is super interesting, that is South Korea. And when you come to think of the tech race, what comes to mind is 5G, for example. And apart from Huawei and ZTE and Ericsson and Nokia, and actually Samsung has it right. And Samsung is from South Korea, right? And what do you know about South Korea? South Korea in 1954, just a few years ago, really, it's not like 500 years ago, South Korea in 1954 was the second poorest country in the whole world. Okay? The second poorest country in the whole world. Like a few days ago, right? 1954. It's not centuries. So, and now they're doing so well. How do they do that? They did it, you know, by formulating and implementing a strategy called NHRD, which is National Human Resource Development Policy, National Human Resource Development Strategy. So 1954, the second worst country in the whole world, bad occupation, bad history, no resources whatsoever. Now they're doing so well, right? So I would say you don't want to be a global curiosity shop with great museums, fantastic museums in Europe and beautiful beaches. You need to strategize to win and also take care of your talent, because if you do not take care of your talent, they will thrive in Silicon Valley like crazy, like mad. So I would say, yeah, just this.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure whether we have time for questions and answers. If there is a burning question from the audience, I think that we can take one. Okay. Please try to make it as brief as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Alexander Sandra. I'm a research fellow from an institute close to Berlin, focused on cybersecurity. Thank you for your talk and so for the interesting issues. But what I'm really lacking is what is really the strategy for the European Union. So we heard a lot about robotics, about the income, about wage and so on, but I don't see the strategy. And you do not have to forget, so China has a strategy, a clear strategy, they know what to do, and it's a top-down approach. So they don't talk about ethics, about moral, about politics, it's done. Fine months. So the US has this economy of scale, right? We are talking about digitalization, which is really about scaling up. So you have the mass. So what is about the European Union? In a time where we renationalize, where we isolate more and more, and this means, so we need a common approach, but we have only national unilateral approaches right now. So especially for critical issues like artificial intelligence, where there's no cooperation and all the countries are not willing. So what will be the European answer to this? Thank you very much.
Would you like to react?
No, a quick thing. I think we discussed it earlier. I think you're totally right, but who are to form that? You said rightly that we're very good at forming regulations. We have, I think, somewhat lacking in executing strategy across borders in Europe, whereas regulation, when it comes to custom and things like that, goes quite well. So I think you're a totally valid point, but I think the question back to you would be, who is the guy or organization who's going to implement that and run it? That's the difficult question.
So, just a question, do we need a overarching large strategy? We can create it and it is possible. That's not the question. The question is rather the implementation after this strategy, when we have, okay, let's move Europe, so on the top. But I think there are some changes in the movement also when you look at the European research and innovation policies. Today, the so-called mission-oriented innovation is gaining place. Let's come back to the idea, yeah, so let's have a man in the moon, and after that, when having a target, it has some consequences. But one thing we shouldn't forget, that in the reality, there are many factors beyond that. All these, you mentioned Facebook and Google, for example. Beyond Google, there is no magic algorithm. That's a very simple algorithm. You mentioned you are a researcher. You know exactly that the quotation index and so on. The logic of the Google is just a simple algorithm. Those websites where many people, many websites are pointing on could be interesting for us. That is simple. What is the brilliant beyond it, and also Facebook, was the business idea you mentioned. And that is not so that make, okay, let's have a large European program, and very good as to how to strengthen business idea. There's a business idea, culture, risk-taking, and so on. So, but I do think that when we have policies, for example, to support the startups, to support the venture capital, let's see the mission-oriented policy, which can mobilize many things. Look at the implementation of how we utilize the robots in a very diverse way, and so on. So all these together could change later on, also the risk-taking mentality or other things. So I don't think that it is a question of do we have or not overarching strategy. Certainly when we want, it happens.
Thank you very much. And I think that we are getting towards the end of our panel. Let me summarize the ideas that for the moment I will take them with me. Let's make the difference between robotics and robotization. I think that this is valuable for me too. Another valuable idea for me is that there are different incentives across the European Union to go with the robotization strategies. In Central and Eastern Europe it is because of the scarcity of human resources. In Western Europe it is about the expensive cost of human resources. So there are different incentives which probably compounds the problem that we are discussing about. Another idea is that there is no fun being number two, and that was the whole idea of the panel, and probably the technological supremacy is something that can make the European Union something more than a global curiosity shop with nice beaches and nice museums. And with these ideas, I will leave you to reflect. And also, I really appreciated the question coming from you. But of course, probably we shouldn't think a grand strategy that is a dead document. But I think that there is a reality that the European Union is fragmenting along national lines, which can be seen in the tech sector too. So I think that one part of the strategy is to stop this trend. With this idea, let me thank all the speakers for their valuable input. For me, it was a pleasure to moderate, to meet you. And I'm sure that the discussion will go on, and we'll see next year whether our estimates were right or wrong. Thank you very much, and let's give our speakers a round of applause.